let's do this together. Well, that's really tough for a leader to say, I need help, because now we're being vulnerable. And at first I thought, God, I'm going to lose their respect. They're not going to respect me because I don't know all the answers. Well, I tried it, and it was the opposite of what I feared. It worked. And people were like, well, yeah, we can help you. We're glad to express our ideas and share.
Hello, hello, my friend. Welcome to the Gabby Rosalie podcast, a platform devoted to expanding our lives by connecting to the wisdom of the collective. Through relatable discussions on topics like communication, connection, leadership, science, and spirituality, we offer revolutionary perspectives and practical tools for creating positive change right here, right now. But I don't want this to be some stiff lecture hall-esque vibe, so we make it fun, raw, and real. With expert guests and relatable conversations, my goal is to inspire you to break through limitations and remember that it is possible to live a life you're excited to wake up to every day. Thank you for being here and enjoy the episode. I am so glad that you are tuning in today. I hope wherever you are, you're feeling grounded, you're feeling energized, and ready to listen to a jam-packed episode today. I myself have been graciously busy with workshops and speaking engagements amidst all the other fun summer activities I've been a part of. But I've been thinking a lot about the idea of success and what it feels like on the inside, how to stay aligned with my own values, my mission in pursuit of my growth, my career, my relationships. And emotional intelligence continues to come up in my work and in all my conversations with clients and partners, personal relationships, et cetera. So today, we are going to be having a conversation about how emotional intelligence blends with success. And joining me to have this beefy conversation is Randy Lyman. Randy is a physicist, exited founder, and really a purpose driven powerhouse. Randy has built multiple 8-figure companies, and what really sets him apart is how he's blended success with emotional and spiritual intelligence. His new book, The Third Element, is all about how leaders can heal emotional wounds, cultivate a culture of belonging, and see real measurable growth because of it. So today, you're going to walk away with practical insights on how to lead from a place of presence, not pressure, not stress, a really relationship driven approach to your business and to your life. So, Randy, welcome to the show. I'm super excited.
Hi, Gavin. Great to be here.
All right, so I want to start out with a practical definition of emotional intelligence because I feel like it's kind of a buzzword nowadays. I've got a couple different keynotes and workshops I do about emotional intelligence, but what does it actually mean in the context of leadership and business? Can you define emotional intelligence in practical terms for us?
Well, it used to mean just kind of pushing our emotions aside and over-regulating. But for me, emotional intelligence means first being aware, then being in controlling the flow of our emotions. They never go away. So we can shut them off for the moment. That's sometimes helpful. That's not always helpful, but sometimes helpful. But it's being aware of our emotions and learning how to work with our emotions in an intelligent way so that we can get through the emotional healing that we need to at the appropriate time. And we can be aware of any emotions that might be creeping into our thoughts and our actions and distracting us from accomplishing what we need to.
Hmm. So I actually do a lot of work on generations and communicating across generations. And so I'm curious, in your line of work, when did emotional intelligence become a really foundational component to the work that you do and how you lead your businesses?
About 35 years ago, in 1989, I met a woman I ended up spending 3 years with. Maria had been immersed in the world of spiritual growth and personal growth for 15 years. And her and I were romantic partners for, my wife hates it when I say that. We were romantic partners for 3 years, and she really helped me see the world in a different light. So I was at that point in time, again, 35 years ago, left brain physicist, mechanical engineer, business person. Give me the facts, let's get the job done without being aware of my emotions. And she helped me to understand that part of life. And I went on to study it in depth after that. But that's when I started on this path of personal growth and emotional alignment.
Yeah. And I think it's funny too, like the romantic partner label, right? It's like, of course, as you know, I have a boyfriend now. And so it's like hearing that, it's kind of like, that human in me is like, but you're mine, right? But I think that having those people in your life to guide you to deeper codes that you have that you can further activate in your own life and in your business and in your work, so critical that we have those people that are going to help guide our lights. So you said it was about 35 years ago. So I read a little bit about, your story and how you had a successful company, but you felt like something was off. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that moment when you kind of realized that the emotional disconnection was limiting your potential and your ability to do what you're doing now, which is scale incredibly successful companies from this place of emotional intelligence. So can you just kind of explain the disconnect that was going on and how you got to the point that you're at now?
I wasn't aware of the disconnect until I got through some of my anger issues. I was frustrated. I was not knowing how to find more success because I had learned from the people around me that if we educate ourselves, make good plans and think clearly and take action, we're going to be successful and happy. Well, we can find success that way through our thoughts and our actions, but that's even limited. And we definitely can't find fulfillment and peace and happiness by avoiding our emotions. So when I had anger come up, Maria was able to help me hold a space for me to where I could work through the anger instead of just feeling it and then pushing it back down. I could express it in a place that was safe, where nobody's affected, and get through to really cry the tears underneath all the pain that was being covered up by the anger. So under the anger was frustration, under the frustration was disappointment, under the disappointment was loneliness.
Mm.
And she helped guide me through those layers. And then after I was able to express and release some of the anger, then I was able to see more clearly. Now there was a big epiphany that happened got a year or so into my path, this new path. I went to a 4-day retreat on business communications. It had nothing to do with emotional growth. It was business communications. Well, on the third day, we went through an exercise that led me to a deep emotional release that I had around wanting to prove to my family that I was competent. Well, I had
Mm.
people in my life, my business life, who were incompetent, and I'd been working on the mirrors. I'm going to think more competently. I'm going to take the actions about being more competent. And Maria would say, watch the mirrors, change yourself, and the world will change. Well, she didn't understand the emotional part at that time, and neither did I. I went through this emotional release and ended up bawling in front of like 15 people in the group. But it was just so strong and so pure. I wasn't embarrassed. It was pure.
Yeah.
So then 4 days later, I go back to work, and four of the people in my life who were incompetent suddenly became competent. All the problems they had went away, and the other two, they left. So I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist. I look at cause and effect. So I look at, okay, I have this big emotional release, and suddenly my physical world around me changes. And I made the connection and said, wow, there must be something else to this law of attraction mirroring thing. And that's when I discovered the third element, the emotional component of being human, that the law of
Mm.
attraction is obligated to interact with.
I love that. And I think it's such a beautiful testimony to how your internal world becomes your external world. And I'm curious for a lot of, I don't want to say just men. It's definitely not just men, but I know that from the conversations that I've had, whether it's clients or in personal relationships, a lot of men, women as well, don't know how to deal with anger. So sometimes we experience shame and guilt that we feel anger, but it's a human emotion and it's important to be felt. And like you said, peel back those layers like an onion of what is under the anger. Is it disappointment? And then it's proving yourself and everything like that. So what advice would you give to someone who feels like they harbor a lot of anger or resentment or is constantly frustrated or kind of living in this state of irritability? What would you say would be some steps that they could take to deal with this anger, to start to get to the root of that and release it eventually?
The first thing is to write it down, draw pictures, do something on paper to identify what your challenges are. So I start with, what's the external challenge? I have this problem, and that's a real life problem. I write that down, and then if there's a solution, I write down the solution. Then even if I find a solution, how did that make me feel? The brain has to step through this in a way that it feels it's in charge and it's guiding the process. So whether I'm writing to lists like a to-do list or a problem list, or whether I'm scribbling pictures on a piece of paper, I'm expressing and identifying the challenge in what I'm feeling. Eventually, again, problem, solution, and then even if I find the solution, I go to the feeling. Well, now I can explore this feeling and say, wow, does this remind me of something from the past? But the first step is the awareness of the underlying feeling.
I think equipping yourself with the tools that your mind brings you is super important, and everybody has their own avenue that they go about this healing process and discovering things about themselves. And for a long time, I used to try the internal route all the time, where I would, meditate, or I would simply reflect and try to be in stillness. But I think that my brain is such a powerful element to, who I am and my personality, because I am a little bit of a logical person. If I need to sit down and make a decision, I'm probably going to go into the pros and cons list. If I've got to get something done, I'm probably going to create a to-do list. And I tried to shy away from this part of my personality and my being for a long time, because I thought it was wrong to use the mind to get to the problems that the mind itself was creating. But I do believe that it is such a partnership to be able to sit with and use the brain as, it's a powerful servant but a terrible master, right? And so I think that that is a really, really good piece of advice for people who may lead more with the mind than they feel they're able to with the feeling body, or maybe from the heart space, because it's, a three-part system. You talk about the third part, the third element, and I am very, very I'm very passionate about sharing about the three-part system: the mind, body, spirit, and my beliefs. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And so I think this idea of threes is so powerful. We don't want to shun one part of our being in the act of trying to become whole again. So I love that. I love that so much. And when we come back to emotional intelligence in terms of business outcomes, I'd love to hear about specifically your relationships. You said that those problems that you noticed in the people you deemed incompetent became competent. Was it a change in their actions? Was it a change in the way that you interacted with them, or simply how you perceived them?
So they changed first. I'm very clear about the reality I live in, including when I'm making mistakes, and I can be part of the problem and I have emotions. But I watched them change before I said anything to them, before I brought up anything, because I never shared anything with them about my release. I just showed up to work and observed the change right away. And the law of attraction, which creates our reality, and whether people believe it or not, we can go into it on a scientific level later. And I cover it in my book, The Third Element, the same as I cover the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, meaning our mind, our body, and our spirit, or our emotional self. So they changed. I observed it. And then I just started down the 35-year rabbit hole now of how do our emotions really interact with the world? And I had to look for clues. I had to look at my experiences. I had to experiment. I had to make mistakes. And as I continued to go down this path of trying to figure it out, it all came together and made sense for me.
So it's like a puzzle. It's like a scavenger hunt,
It is, and
internally
that's
and
the thing about
externally.
being human. And as you said, every person processes emotions differently. For me, breath work works,
Yeah,
EFT tapping works,
same.
walking in nature. There's a lot of different things that work, but every one of us is different. The main thing we need to do is, again, using your words, you've done some work, I can see that, is our mind has to partner with our higher self through our intuition, partner through our child self, where the emotions and the pain is buried. And if the mind is not part of the process, it will hijack the healing process.
Mm,
And if we're just stuck in the mind, then we can't feel our body. And emotions have to be felt and expressed and released through physical sensation through our physical body. So we have to find techniques where the mind partners or guides us through a connection with our physical body.
absolutely. Now, when we were talking in the intro, you have built multiple eight-figure businesses, so you're massively successful. I would love to hear about some of the recent traction in your work, and how you scale these companies. You hear these stories if it's like, all right, you got this startup or you got this company who's maybe turning over 250K a year, and then now they're like you are massively successful, eight-figure, seven-figure company. But talk to me a little bit about that growth process.
Well, first I had to become clear within myself. And when I released more and more of my anger, disappointment, shame also, it was interesting because as a man, I had shame about having shame, but it was real.
Amen. Yep.
And as I became more clear, then I was able to attract better people to work with. My managers, my team members, everybody, I attracted better people. And that helped just for starters. And I was able to clear up my thoughts. And when I had a frustration, I was able to work through my emotional challenge. So I became clear. I attracted a better team. And then I said, I'm going to experiment with this and take some of these spiritual principles, so to speak, and incorporate them into some of my smaller teams where if I screw up, I don't ruin the company. So I would work with my shipping department the um, in the warehouse. I would deal with my mechanics and my service shops, and we would try visualizations and then communication. So I would ask them, hey, I need help figuring this out. Let's do this together. Well, that's really tough for a leader to say, I need help because now we're being vulnerable. And at first I thought, God, I'm going to lose their respect. They're not going to respect me because I don't know all the answers. Well, I tried it, and it was the opposite of what I feared. It worked. And people were like, well, yeah, we can help you. We're glad to express our ideas and share. So I had to learn to listen. I had to learn to mirror back. I had to learn to say, no, we can't do that, but thank you for sharing. So people felt like they were listened to. And what I learned after all my experimenting was people need three things more than they need money. They need to feel like they are acknowledged for who they are. So I had to learn to stop and listen and ask people questions about themselves. Not probing questions, but give them a chance to talk. How was your weekend? Oh, my daughter had a soccer game. And then I'd make a note of that to myself. Or I'm working on something with a car project with my dad. I go back to them, whether it's 3 days later or 3 weeks later, and say, how you doing? How's that project going? How's your daughter doing? They're like, holy cow, this person heard me and they care about me. And then I acknowledge, talk to their boss and say, hey, are they doing a good job? Where are they doing a good job? Do I have your permission, or are we in agreement with me praising them? Because if they're in a disciplinary program, I don't want to screw that up. And not that that happened, but it's still part of managing. So
Sure.
they say, yeah, well, Jeff's been doing a really great job of getting his early morning work done on time and early, and he's been helping other people. So now I walk up to Jeff, how's your daughter? Your boss tells me that you're doing a great job in this area. Holy cow, they light up. And now when I interact with them, they see me differently. They see me as a person because I saw them as a person. So this took behavior changes. It took investment in time. As soon as I walk away, I'd have a piece of paper. This is the old days for a phone. I write down my notes about Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
And and if it was genuine, even if it was from my notes, people responded to this. And people don't listen to us until we listen to them. And then I had to be more clear, as I already said, because people can't hear us unless they can feel us. So these are small behavior
Mm.
changes that made a huge difference in the business. So who they are, acknowledge them for who they are, help them feel like they're contributing to the cause, because most people's life just feels worthless. What am I doing? Why am I even here? Now, when they feel like they're contributing at work and through the acknowledgement and through interactions, that helps. And then third, do they belong to the team? Are they a valued team member? So between acknowledgement, contribution, and belonging,
Mm.
it changed everything. And so then I wasn't worried about, oh God, are these people doing their job? It was a game to figure out how to find ways to praise them, how to find ways to acknowledge them, how to find ways to help them feel like they belong. And people are like, well, why does that matter? We just need to make a profit. Well, it matters because people drive the numbers. The numbers don't drive the people. The numbers will drive a owner or CEO or CFO maybe, but when we help people feel valued, and there's more steps to this, but when they feel good about their job and they show up 100% and they're contributing, that drives the numbers. That drives the success.
Absolutely. And I think too that in this appreciation and acknowledgement and validation, you're reinforcing the bar. And the more that you're able to find areas of praise and share that openly, and they can feel the genuinity in the praise that you're delivering, the bar is set here. And I know for me, if somebody says like, oh, Gabby, you're always on time for your meetings, or, you always make sure to voice your opinion in a respectful way. It's like, okay, I hear that. And then the feedback loop is like repeat, 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 because not only do you want to continue to receive praise, but it's also like this I don't want to say proving, but holding yourself to that standard because other people see you there, and it's reinforcing, but it's also that internal and that intrinsic motivation of like, people see me this way, I'm going to make sure that they continue to see me this way. That's why I think praise works wonders, because you're setting the bar, you're reinforcing the bar.
And something that I share with leaders is accuse people of doing something good that they haven't necessarily done yet. Hey, I know that you're really good at this, and I'm sure you're going to deliver a great project. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'm like, oh crap. He believes in me because we have to say it from a place where we really believe it.
For sure.
And then they hear it and then they want to perform. And if here's something,
Yes.
when I started learning this, I actually learned this before I was on my spiritual path. 40 years ago, I learned praise somebody or anybody for something small. And my worry was, God, if I praise them for doing a mediocre job, they're either going to get more lazy or they're going to stay mediocre. Nope. When I praise them for something small, they love the praise, they want more praise, and they're going to find ways to shine so that I can praise them more. So make it genuine, even if it's small, make it genuine, praise them for that, and watch how that person lights up and changes and performs at a higher level.
Absolutely. I love it so much. And I think it always does tie back to the genuinity because, we can understand the psychology of leadership and how people interpret feedback and praise and everything like that. But if you're not doing it from a place of appreciation, true genuinity, that will be felt. And so I think it's so, so, so important to do that internal work where you're able to hold that same space and appreciation and validation for yourself so that then when you show up for other people in that process, they can feel it. There's not this disconnect and like, oh, he's just saying this, or it feels a little bit off, or this feels forced, or whatever.
So people feel us, and I have a story that comes to mind about that.
Yeah.
So whether I walk into my warehouse or I walk into a board meeting, people feel me, even if I'm trying to suppress the emotions. And so they're going to feel that. And even if I am doing a good job of suppressing it on the surface, that's taking energy away from me being present. And the way I really know this works is because if I was ever having a bad day and I would walk through my sales room, I have like 25 people on in the sales room, and if I would just walk through and not talk to anybody, it would cost me $10,000 in gross profit for that day. Net gross and the net profit for that day. And I watched this happen a few times, like, wow, the sales are just really down today. And then I realized, oh, I was in a crappy mood. And I walked to the sales department and they could feel it. And
Mm.
especially salespeople are more sensitive maybe than others, but not necessarily. Everybody's sensitive. So then I made a point to never go near my sales group or anywhere in the building if I'm in a bad mood. And
Yeah.
if I'm in a good mood, I walk through and start praising my sales guys.
Oh yeah, you're doing your rounds. You're like, I'm feeling good today. Let's make our rounds. And I haven't even asked or introduced the audience to what do you actually do for work?
Well, I sold those businesses 10 years ago. I distributed automotive differential parts. I had a small portion of my business. I started my garage in 1882 doing differential repair. So that business carried on for 40 years. 3 years ago, they shut that down because they were running out of space in the building, and the wholesale part of the business has just become so large. But we distributed and manufactured differential parts. We owned a little over 40% of market share for the entire country.
Awesome.
And we took over that market share when I started over in 96. We took over that share of the market in 10 years, taking on companies that had a 50-year head start on us. And we did
Wow.
it because the people love their work and they work so well together. We drove the numbers and the success to the people, as I already said. And people like, wait, how can you do that? You got to show up and tell people what to do. No, we show up and we have conversations about what we're going to do. We share our goals with the group. We have to teach our groups how to how to approach projects and do problem solving. So we teach them a four-step project program. Steps, excuse me. I'm wired. I love talking about
I
this.
know, I love it. I love it.
So we teach them how to make decisions. We teach them how to disagree with each other and still be friends. And we teach them how to communicate and how to be present in the moment and accomplish things and get things done. So when we teach people this, it's a big investment in time. But now when I come into work, I don't have to go and do that. They're doing that themselves. And they teach new people that. And they're happier. I'm happier. My worries go away. And I have time to do the other things I need to do that only I can do. Now, it took a big investment in time to teach people this way of being and for me to change my way of being and show up this way. But the return on investment was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just echoing what you said, it does take time and it's not an immediate shift, but some of these shifts in perspective do have immediate results. But that work that you're going to have to do, the time, the energy that you're going to have to invest, it is an investment and it will be returned to you. But having that patience with the people that are a part of the process is such an important component.
And
And
consistency.
yes.
Consistency is really big because people will listen to us, but more than that, they watch us and they feel us. And as I was starting to do this, I was still working through anger issues. When I felt that come up, I had to leave the building completely and go work on myself and work through that and not let that spill into the people I was interacting with. So I had to go through my own work. I still do my own work today. I don't have anger issues come up, but I have worthiness issues come up. I
Sure.
sometimes have shame and worthiness and deservedness. And we have to figure out how to work through our own issue, show up better. And then eventually people will start coming to that leader with their deeper problems. Not that we're here to be therapists, but if somebody who's a leader, say my director of sales is having challenges and they want to come up and talk to me and they feel safe with me, I hold that space for them. They can go through emotional release. They can share things with me they wouldn't share with me if I wasn't vulnerable and centered and calm and confident. And during a period of about 5 years, last 6 years of my business, I wasn't even on site. I was operating it remote because I'd worked with the teams for so long. But during a period of about 5 years, I had like 20 different men come and sit at my desk and end up crying and releasing emotional challenges. And then their performance would improve. They'd show up to work happy. Everything changed. And so it's a different way of being. And again, we don't have to be therapists, but we have to be clear within our own right.
Absolutely. And I think that it's so important to know when you sign up for the role of being a leader, you are governing others in self-leadership just as much as you are building into the next generation of leaders in the workforce. And so to be able to hold that space for not even just the leaders, but everybody on the team, it's a critical component to leadership itself. And I think that that is such a fast-tracked path to actualization in yourself, is being able to step into that role from a place of, I'm going to go in and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to share unconditionally. I'm going to be present. I'm going to put in the effort, the time, and the energy. And it all comes back to you. It all comes back to you.
So can we talk for a moment about respected leaders and true power?
Absolutely.
I learned over time by making mistakes and by experimenting that my true power, for one, it comes with my connection with God and my belief in good and all that. But in my interactions, and just put God aside for the moment, if you don't believe in that, my power does not come from my title. It does not come from me pushing people to do what they need to do. My power comes from the group of people that I'm leading. Because when they can truly feel that I want them to succeed, and I use the words and take the actions, and I genuinely want them to succeed, now they're on my side. Now they want the team to succeed because they want to be part of that success. So my power comes from the people who I lead. And so I'm of service to them. And when I can do that from a place of being authentic and being vulnerable, admitting my mistakes, and telling them, hey, help me with this, making decisions as a group, now I'm ironically, I garner more respect, and garner is not even the right word. I receive more respect, and they enjoy working with me. They enjoy working with the people in this wonderful environment we've created, and my job's easier, and the business is more successful. So again, I show up authentic, I show up vulnerable, and then they feel safe to be their whole self, and they can make mistakes by sharing ideas that they might have been embarrassed to share. And some of those ideas they're embarrassed to share, they end up being multi-million dollar ideas. And we have to create the environment where people are willing to do that. It's scary as a leader, a left brain leader, to walk in and say, I'm going to be vulnerable because God, if they don't respect me, I lose control and I'm going to lose my job or lose my company. So take baby steps. I can help people do that. I've done that on other businesses and other leaders, and it works. It's worth the time and investment. It pays off.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about the third element. What can readers expect after or during reading the book that you've recently published?
So I wrote the third element. I started writing this 4.5 years ago. I started writing it. It's based on my 35 years of experience, and it's all about helping people understand how the emotional component, the third element of being human, interacts with the world. Why do we need to be aware of our emotions? How can we be aware of our emotions? How can we process through and release our emotional wounds? So it's has interesting stories. It has a lot of my story in there. It has exercises and explanations, and the idea is for people to understand how the universe responds to them so they can make changes, small changes within themselves, and see huge positive changes reflected in their outside world.
Mm, I love it. Now, actionability wise, before anybody has read the book, if they're listening to this episode right now, what are maybe 2 to 3 things that leaders can do today to foster more emotional intelligence for themselves and their teams? Maybe derived from the book, but just making it super clear, like, hey, I want you to go home, I want you to take this back to your team, and I want you to go home and I want you to do this for yourself. Maybe 2 or 3 things.
So the first one we talked about, which is what I just call journaling, list writing, whatever that might be.
Yep.
The second is learn some sort of breathing exercise that works for you, whether it's Wim Hof, whether it's box breathing, whether it's breathing like you took me through before we started here with the two-step inhale, hold, and exhale. Whatever breathing exercise works, that can be used at any moment, anywhere. It costs nothing. I use EFT tapping, and in the appendix in the book, the whole appendix is on how to write your own tapping exercises. I have free tapping exercises on my website, randylyman.com, and then walking in nature. And if you can walk in nature combined with finding things to be grateful for,
Mm,
gratitude is the mind looking for something to be thankful for, and then when we latch onto that, then we feel the gratitude. So the mind's in control, it's in charge, but we get to a place of feeling. And anytime we can get to a place of feeling, we can get deeper into our true self and tap into that power that's only available through being here in the present moment and not being lost in our thinking mind.
I love that. I love that so much. And EFT tapping and breath work in particular have been two of the modalities that have helped me the most in my journey and just my discovery of myself and the layers, like we were talking about the onion. And I really, really do love breath work because it alchemizes this energy. And if I am holding on to a lot of stress, I have grown in my intuition and my connection to my body in the last 2 years so deeply, and I can feel when I'm holding stress before I know it intellectually. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it whether it's a tensity in my shoulders or my neck, or I can feel it in shakiness. I can feel it in my heart rate or just like shortness of breath. And so I have started to identify this stress, or maybe it's frustration or it's anxiety. I'm worried, I'm doubtful, I'm thinking about the future. And when I sit down and I do breath work, and my favorite YouTube channel for breath work is Breathe with Sandy. I've posted it a couple times on my channels, but Breathe with Sandy. He is amazing. He's got 15-minute, he's got 30-minute, he's got hour-long breathwork journeys. Love him, love him. And when I sit down and I'm feeling this stress, this anger, whatever it is, and I take myself through the breath, it is I feel the effects immediately. And I think that that is the importance of a practice, a spiritual practice, getting into nature, breath work, EFT tapping, is that the consistency, like you said, in leadership with your people and the conversations and the psychological safety is so important. But it's also so important in these practices. You might receive immediate relief after a breath work session, but I do think that calibrating your baseline and just raising it higher and higher with this daily or weekly practice. Nobody's perfect, of course, but it's so beautiful. And EFT tapping as well. That has absolutely changed my life. I would say maybe like 8 months ago, I was going through a hard time in 2024, just difficult. Really, a whole lot of self-worth, doubt, worry about the future kind of issues. Who am I? What am I? Am I on the right path? And I would start out my days every morning with prayer and EFT tapping before I even got out of bed. I would start it, and I mean, it really, really transformed my internally and my external universe. So I'm so glad that you brought both of those up and that you have videos on your website.
Yes, and with the breath, the longer sessions are great, but I've learned that even if I can only take 2 breaths or 3 breaths and be aware of those breaths in the moment, it
Yes,
has a positive effect. It has a huge effect.
it does.
And I just want to mention in the book, The Third Element, in my book, chapter 7, I share 14 different processes, exercises that people can use, and use whatever works for you. It's no two people are the same. We're all meant to be different, but the breath work is pretty universal. So I agree with that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, and because I think too that the feeling body entering into the physical body, it's like the anchor to the present moment, right? And so you mentioned presence as a really big component to all the things that you're doing in your personal and your professional work. But yeah, the presence is so important because you can't feel if you're not present if you're elsewhere. So
And we can't heal emotions or emotional wounds with our mind. We can't be present with our mind. I explain all this in the book and in a way that's, again, kind of fun. And that way people say, oh, my mind is never in the present moment. My body is always in the present moment. And my emotions and feelings can only come through my body in the present moment. I can't do it with my brain.
Mm.
And those of us who are strong-willed and have a gifted with a good brain, which most people are, we do our best to avoid feeling our body in the moment, and we do our best to avoid those old emotional wounds that uh, pay off in spades when we take the time and we're bold enough to dive into that pain, embrace it, and release it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what
And
else I want to. I know what else I want to ask. So the
yeah,
science of the release of the breath and other things we do is simple thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics says energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transformed. So when we're holding this emotional energy in our body that we created through our muscles over time, that energy stored within us, when we breathe, we're turning that stored energy into heat. We set our intention, I'm going to breathe this out, or whether we have a tear or whether we are moving our body dancing, that stored emotional energy becomes heat, it's released, and Earth takes it on and loves it.
I love that so much. So good. Now, I know we mentioned your book, we mentioned your website. Is there anything else that you want to leave listeners with to be able to connect with you? Or, you know what, honestly, if you send me any direct links, whether it's to your book, to your website, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the episode description. If there's anything else that you want to call out, please go ahead and do that now.
Well, I do one-on-one coaching and I do CEO and group leadership coaching. But the thing I'd really like to say is every single one of us is worthy and deserving. And myself, I've built a company that's done billions of dollars in sales. I've helped millions of customers. And I still go back to that hurt inner child of when I'm 7 or 8 years old that feels I'm not deserving. My mind is clear. I'm an adult. I'm responsible. I'm evolved on a mental level. But I still myself have challenges around deservedness. And I think a lot of people do, but we're all deserving. We're all beautiful spiritual souls on this human path. And give yourself a break. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do everything perfect. You don't have to, definitely not going to do healing perfect, but it's worth the investment. Invest in yourself. You're worthy.
Amen. I love that so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Randy. I'm so glad that we were able to record this episode. And thank you to all of you guys that are out there listening. I know that we dropped lots and lots of Easter eggs and really, really potent wisdom in this conversation. So thank you guys so much for listening. And Randy, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I'll put all the links and the info in the episode description. And if you guys have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. My info will be in the episode description as well. So, Randy, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's good to be here. Thank you as well.
Hold up now, y'all. Before you head out, I need to say thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode, and most importantly, thank you for making the conscious decision to invest in yourself and expand your mind, heart, and spirit. Because you showed up for you, you are helping others live better lives. Whether you know it or not, you are inspiring others daily. And if you're feeling fired up, keep the domino effect alive and share this episode with someone that you love. If you're feeling extra saucy, leave the show a review because it really, really helps me out. And come back and hang with me again sometime. New episodes every other Monday at 8 a.m. Keep shining your unique light. I see you, and I love you.